to the floor, right, wins this battle. That's Sophie Cunningham. Well, I thought Van Loo grabbed her by the neck. Sophie, thankfully and fortunately, let that one go. They both got up smiling.
Sophie Cunningham finally broke her silence after what many are calling the most controversial loss of the season, and her 6 words might just give you chills. The Indiana Fever dropped a heartbreaking 89-87 game to the league's lowest team, the Los Angeles Sparks, for the second time this season, but this wasn't just about the score. The game was filled with questionable officiating, rough physical play, and a moment where Sophie was grabbed around the neck with no foul called. Her reaction, a smile, and a laugh. What she said afterward may change how fans view this team's grit and determination.
We have a fun group, we have a goofy group, but sometimes you kind of need to get pissed off a little bit and dial in. I think that's what you saw today.
The Indiana Fever were at the peak of their season just days ago. They had taken down 3 of the league's top teams in back-to-back statement wins. First, they outplayed Paige Buchers and the Dallas Wings in a game that turned heads. Then, they crushed the Minnesota Lynx to claim their first ever Commissioner's Cup title. But the true highlight, a commanding victory over AJ Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces, a performance so dominant, it had fans and analysts alike buzzing about their championship potential.
Howard looking backdoor for Mitchell, not there. Shot clock down to 7. McDonald feed inside, and it's Howard for 2.
It's good recognition.
And let's not forget Caitlin Clark was sidelined during all of this. The team's driving force and floor general was out with a left groin injury, missing her 10th game of the season. Her absence was immediately noticeable. Without Clark orchestrating the offense, the Fever's identity looked completely different. The tempo slowed down, and the fluid ball movement that made them such a threat seemed to disappear. Aliyah Boston, who thrives with consistent touches in the paint, wasn't getting the opportunities she needed to play her natural game.
This game would have been great to have Caitlin Clark back in the second half. Just an extra playmaker on the court, doing the things that Caitlin Clark does. But I'm glad if it's rest or no rest. Last time she came back early, and guess what happened? She was overcompensating, being, even if she's 70, 80%, and she ended up getting another injury and being out twice as long instead of just holding off till she was 100%. And also coming back for one Sparks game.
But here's the wild part, despite everything. The Fever were still favored to win this game. ESPN gave them a 72.9% chance of victory, and Vegas had them as 6.5-point favorites. On paper, this was supposed to be a routine win against one of the league's weakest teams. The Sparks came in with a rough 5-13 record. Yes, the Fever were without Caitlin Clark, and Dewana Bonner was absent after stepping away from the team. Darius Dantas was also unavailable, representing her country in the FIBA Americas. Still, expectations were clear. The Fever were supposed to get the job done.
Indiana Fever fans, we came up short. We lost in the final seconds of this game, 89-87. We were up by 6 points with 5 minutes left, and also up by 4 points with 1:40.
The cruel irony couldn't be ignored. The Sparks had already defeated the Fever earlier in the season when Indiana was at full strength. And now, despite being shorthanded and struggling, the Sparks faced the same team that had once embarrassed them. The final score said it all, 89-87, just 2 points. The Fever missed their last 5 shots, including 4 crucial attempts in the final minute. Days ago, they looked like a championship contender. Now, without their superstar on the floor, those dreams felt uncertain. But the score was only part of the heartbreak. What happened next turned this loss into a full-blown controversy.
We should have won this game. There was inconsistencies in the officiating. Wait until you see the second half. And I have everything.
Here's where the night took a sharp and unsettling turn. One that had Coach Stephanie White visibly furious. The game was tight, the pressure intense, and then the officiating took center stage for all the wrong reasons. Questionable calls began piling up, leaving players, coaches, and fans stunned. What should have been a simple, hard-fought contest started slipping into chaos as the referees appeared to lose their grip on the game. The frustration was palpable and growing by the minute.
I don't get it. Breanna Stewart, AJ Wilson, wait until you see what they did for Kelsey Plum tonight. They get all the calls. Touch fouls, anything. And guess what happens? Aliyah Boston, the best center in the game, and guess what happens to her? She gets called for every touch foul and ends up in foul trouble this entire season and is still putting up MVP type numbers. What happens with Caitlin Clark? Have you ever seen her get a touch foul? Phantom call? No. The physicality, that's the WNBA when it comes to Caitlin Clark. But anybody else, The physicality disappears. And it's foul after foul after foul in the second half.
Julie Van Loo grabbed Sophie Cunningham around the neck during a loose ball scramble in. This wasn't just incidental contact. It was a clear foul that should have been called without hesitation. The play happened right in front of the officials, yet the whistle never came. Sophie's reaction said it all. She smiled, she laughed, but not because it was amusing. It was the kind of laugh that masks disbelief. Sophie understood in that moment, the officials weren't protecting anyone on that court.
To the floor, right? Wins this battle. That's Sophie Cunningham. Wow, I thought Van Loo grabbed her by the neck. Sophie, thankfully and fortunately, let that one go. They both got up smiling.
The scene spoke volumes on its own. Sophie getting grabbed around the face and neck, with no whistle in sight. At the same time, the referees were fixated on reviewing clean defensive plays. Sydney Colson delivered a textbook block that was somehow called a foul, forcing a long review just to correct an obvious error. It was baffling. While legitimate fouls were ignored, the officials seemed more concerned with overanalyzing plays that didn't warrant a second look.
This is what I was talking about with Sophie Cunningham. Look at this. She literally grabbed her around her neck, and they called this a jump ball, and then threw her down the next play.
These calls came at the worst possible time during the final minutes, when every possession was critical. The Fever were fighting to secure a win they were expected to take with ease. Instead, they found themselves up against not just the Sparks, but the officials as well. A troubling pattern began to emerge, one that's been haunting the Fever. All season, the officiating wasn't just inconsistent, it was reckless. When players like Sophie aren't protected from clear contact, it sends a dangerous message that anything is allowed. Time and again, the calls seemed to favor the Sparks, while the Fever were left exposed and frustrated.
And then threw her down the next play. And then Aaliyah Boston, like I said, she didn't touch her. They put her in foul trouble all season long. They're just calling stuff to call stuff. The refs made this game about them. Aaliyah Boston, again, she's an all-star player. Look at these hits. Good thing Caitlin Clark didn't play because it was just a sloppy basketball game between the officials and the Los Angeles Sparks. Look at this. They called this a foul instead of a block. And then there's Aaliyah Boston again. That's 3 fouls where she didn't touch anybody. And that's our best player, and wonder why we lose this game. Michaela Timpson, watch these 2 calls in a row. She didn't do anything. She got hit on that one, and they called a foul on her.
Coach Stephanie White's post-game press conference summed it all up. When asked about the outcome, she delivered 4 words that spoke volumes. Asterisk, we didn't get the calls. It was a direct, honest reflection of what everyone had witnessed. Her comment wasn't about shifting blame or making excuse. It was about acknowledging the clear imbalance that had shaped the game. White's words captured the frustration shared by her team and fans alike.
And this is 4th quarter. Look at this. This one pissed me off. Kelsey Plum seriously elbows Lexi Hall, then purposely steps over so she couldn't get up. Lexi Hall can't believe it. That's a foul. The ref was right there in front of her. And then here we go. And they kept McDonald in foul trouble the entire game. There's 2 in a row where she didn't do anything. Look at that. Just had her arms in the air, but they gave, this is the 4th quarter. And they just kept giving every single call. I like Leah Boston finally getting pissed off. Then they call this away from the ball in the 4th quarter. Nothing going on. Just to put him at the line, and then Kelsey Plum, another one. But when Howard drives and gets slashed across the face, no foul, just out of bounds.
Here's Mitchell off the screen, but can't connect on the 3. Boston offensive rebound rolls it in a foul. The 2 bigs bring the ball up the floor, and Hamby wasn't ready for that.
How about that change of pace? That burst like a guard gets downhill to the rim.
Lob inside. Boston too far underneath. Shot clock down to 5. Kick out Mitchell. Oh, yes!
Busted them all up. We went to the same high school.
Howard left alone. Answers with a 3.
That is so dangerous. They don't look like a 5-win team to me.
Oh, and there's Timpson sending it back.
Sophie commits a hard foul on JC Sheldon again. as JC Sheldon is going up for a layup, Sophie bear hugs her and takes her to the ground. What I will say is Sophie did not grab her and throw her to the ground. She didn't body slam her. She didn't do anything, in my personal opinion. Maybe I'm biased here, but I'm going to give you guys my straight up honest opinion on this. She bear hugged her, took her to the ground. Yes, it was intentional. It was absolutely intentional.
It's cool. It's funny what kind of people are attracted to. You know, I'm just trying to keep the main thing. The main thing is that's basketball, trying to win games, sticking up for my teammates. And that's all part of it. I think all that stuff it's fun and whatnot, but at the end of the day, we need to win some basketball games. I'm not focused on the extracurricular activities. And you know what? During that, it was just part of the game. I think the refs had a lot to do with that. It was a build up for a couple of years now of them just not protecting, the star player of the WNBA. And so at the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do.
Being one of the new ones here.
Yeah.
But you're someone who likes to bring the energy,
Yeah.
whether we just saw what we saw, but regardless, can you just talk about that?
Yeah, I think that's just who I am. It's my personality. I'm the glue to it. We kind of have a weird age gap. We have some oldies on the team. We have some young bucks, and I'm kind of the tweener is what they call me. And so it's just trying to make everyone match and make sure we're all just having good vibes, right? The seasons has a bunch of highs and lows, and so just trying to keep a level head on everyone. But I also think that we get to play basketball for a living, and that's super fun. So sometimes you just need a good perspective of like, hey, we're in the grind right now, and it feels hard. But at the end of the day, we get to dribble a ball for a living, so we got to be grateful for that.